It's noon here in Ventnor City, New Jersey, and our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. And this is CarEdge Live for Wednesday, June 25th, with your hosts, me, Ray, and well, that handsome young man, my son, Zach. How are you this afternoon, handsome?
Happy Wednesday, June 25th, Dad. I'm doing fantastic. We've got a guest for today's show. We're going to talk about, did the used car market collapse? So stay tuned for that, Chris. Chip will be joining us here in just a moment. We got to thank our sponsor, Delete Me, in about 10 minutes. And
yes,
a friendly reminder, CarEdge.com. If we can help you all out with anything, check it out back on the website, CarEdge.com. We still have 20% off CarEdge Insights and 20% off our car buying services between now and the end of the month. Take advantage of that back at CarEdge.com. Dad, should we belabor it? Should we just pull Chip in right now? Give a little bit of a set the stage for Chip, who we're going to call here in just a moment. Why should we be listening to him, and what are we going to learn today about the used car market?
Well, Chip, aka Chris, actually. Chris has been I don't know, in the used car business as a used car manager, wholesaler, buyer, 30 plus years.
30 plus years. Well,
yeah, he's seen a thing or two. He knows a thing or two because he's seen a thing or two. There's very few people who have their fingers on the pulse of a market quite like Chris. And so I think we'll get some insights from Chris that we just don't often hear. So,
all right, I'll give him a ring right now. Dad, just give me a thumbs up once it starts dialing to make sure audio's working okay, and then we'll have Chris on the line.
What do you bet it goes to voicemail?
Hello, Chris here.
Hey, Chris, it's Zach and Ray with CarEdge Live. How you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing great. Pops, you're taking the reins here. It's so good to hear your voice.
Chris, I was certain, even though this was pre-planned, that it would go to voicemail.
No.
So Chris, my dad just gave you a brief intro, kind of shared your credentialing, why we should be listening to you today. Pops, cue up the first question here. Let's dig into the used car market.
So as somebody who has spent 30 years delving into the used car market, what are you seeing today that either frightens you or excites you?
Well, what concerns me is the lack of inventory because the loaners, the rentals, it's seasonal, and we're in the peak seasonal season, and there's no lease returns, or few far between, because they haven't leased a lot of cars, and everybody's keeping the trades because everybody needs trade. So it just makes it very difficult to stock the shelves, and I don't see it changing anytime soon, even after the rental season's kind of calmed down. There's just not a lot of nice used trade-ins out there. So, everybody's flocking to the auction, and it's keeping prices pretty firm.
So we have seen, at least in the Black Book stats, that there is somewhat of a return to seasonality and normalcy as far as depreciation on the wholesale side of things. That we had that big spike in the middle of March where dealers were going crazy with what they were paying for cars. Have you seen at least some downward pressure on the wholesale prices, or are you seeing the opposite of that?
We are back to, you're correct on the seasonal thing, like Corvettes, Porsches, stuff like that it will calm down on the East Coast at least, because we're kind of coming out of that season, and if somebody who wants that particular kind of sports car, he's already bought it, or he's going to buy it in the next couple of days, So after the 4th of July, that market's definitely going to kind of cool off. but the basic like Toyota Camry, Honda Civic, that market, I'm not sure if there's enough to go around, you know. So I think it's gonna you know, stay pretty good, you know.
Chris, if you don't mind, I wanna bring some data into this, and I want to get your reaction to it. So you've spent 30 years on the wholesale and retail used car side of the business, and I went with a title for today's show that was, "Did the used car market just collapse?" And the reason I went with that, Chris, is because a website out there called iSeeCars published some research, and the headline of that research is, "The sub $20,000 used car is almost gone." In 2019, almost half of all 3-year-old used cars cost $20,000 or less. Today, that number is just about 10%. And so the reason I'm suggesting, or asking the question at least, did the used car market just collapse, is not necessarily because there's too much inventory and now prices are going to collapse. I'm actually wondering if the question is the used car market going to collapse because there are no longer affordable used cars for customers? And hearing you initially here, you're saying inventory's been short and tight. So curious your reaction to that. In 2019, half of the used cars for sale that were 3 years old were around $20,000 or less, and now it's about 10%. How do you react to hearing a stat like that?
Well, you know, I buy cars every day for franchise dealers, you know, and you know, I get asked the question all the time, you know, and I find it that, you know, I'll give you 2 examples. Like if you buy like a 21 Honda or Toyota Camry, you buy a 21 Toyota Camry with like 55,000 miles on it. You know, by the time you get it through the shop and everything and fix all the little dents and dings and everything, that car probably cost you, like, you know, say it's a SE with a little equipment. You know, a car probably costs you, say, with 55,000 miles on it, it's going to cost you like 19 grand, which is, you know, the car new costs 30 or 29, maybe less, 27 back 5 years ago, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, to retail, to get that car through the shop and everything, it's going to cost you, you know, at least, you know, say $2,000, you know, maybe, you know, with, if it has some dings and stuff and you got to paint a couple of bumpers, you know, you could be into that car for like, and then you get the, you know, the auction fee, which is only like, you know, $700. I mean, it's a deal. But I mean, it's crazy what these auction fees are. That's a whole nother subject. But, you know, so you're going to be into the car for like 22 grand. And my philosophy is, I'd rather just go and buy a 23 Camry, say from Avis, with 45,000 miles on it, but I can buy the car. It's a 23 or a 24, and I can buy it for the same. My recon's going to be less, so I'm going to be into the car for about the same amount of money, and it's 2 years newer. So it all depends how they're playing their inventory stock in position. That's what it really comes down to.
But I would say in either example you just gave, neither of those cars are retailing for under $20,000, which is exactly what the data that we got from iSeeCars says, which is, hey, this market no longer exists. And I think your point there is, doesn't matter if I go back to 2021 or if I go back to 2023 or even a 2024, I'm not going to be selling you a used car at under $20,000. And the concern I have in that, Chris, and I'm curious if you're concerned about this as well, and I'll posit as a side note, we should talk about auction fees. I think that would be really interesting. But, you know, we're just getting rid of a whole subset of customers who would have been able to purchase vehicles who no longer can't. So, you know, we talk about the affordability crisis on this channel all the time for new cars, but the affordability crisis for the used car market seems super real and could, I think, make this market, I mean, collapse might be a little bit overdramatic, but I mean, it'll have a material impact on the market, don't you think?
You know, up until this point, it hasn't. I mean, people are still buying used cars at a pretty good pace, at least in the Northeast. And the Northeast has most of the cars. You know, I was on the phone with the Enterprise rep who sell wholesales in New Jersey. That's his job. And he does a lot of cars. And he's like, he's running out of cars. They're selling to dealerships that quickly that he's having a hard time pulling the cars out of rental fleet because they got so many cars. Everybody's renting a car right now, and so he doesn't have a lot of cars to pull, and the demand is it's very strong. I mean, franchise dealers are selling used cars at a pretty good pace. I mean, and they're getting good money for the cars.
I'll pull up one more data point, Chris, and then we got to thank our sponsor for today's program, and then we'll come back to the content with you. The data point I'm going to pull up comes from Cox Automotive, and this comes from their mid-year report that just came out yesterday. And you can see the chart on your screen for those of you that are watching with us. For those of you on the podcast afterwards, I'll try and describe it here. It's used retail sales, and the dark blue line in this chart is 2025, and it's actually the highest line over the past 4 years. So we have the highest rate of retail used car sales over the past 4 years happening right now. So Chris, to your point, there are more vehicles being sold, used vehicles being sold. However, the day's supply is the lowest it's been in the past few years. But again, I do think there's a narrative here, and Dad, I'll hand it off to you after we do this quick read for our friends over at Delete Me. But I wonder if there is a world where the used car market starts to feel some pain as a result of how constricted it has become. But talking about pain, Pops, you don't feel any pain when you don't have marketers, scammers, and everyone in between selling your data online. You know this as well as I, Dad, and Chris, maybe you'll become aware of it right now. There are data brokers out there selling your information online, and anyone can buy it. Your social security number, phone number, home address, and so much more are sold online every single day, and those scammers, marketers, and those elusive folks in between get their hands on it. Delete Me, the sponsor of today's program, helps you take control over your data. You're looking at my Delete Me account right now. My dad and I both use this product every single day. Delete Me removes our personal information from hundreds of data brokers on our behalf, and it can do that for you too. Go to join Delete Me, joindeleteme.com/CarEdge to learn more. You can get started today with coupon code CarEdge and get 20% off every day. Delete Me has taken our information off the internet, and we encourage you to do the same thing too. Okay, so Dad, back to the conversation here. What are your thoughts on this? Is there a collapse and impending doom for the used car market?
Well, I think there's an affordability issue both on the new car side of things and the used car side of things. I mean, obviously, if just a few years ago, 50% of all 3-year-old cars were available on a retail basis for $20,000 or less, and that number is now only 10%. That means that the relative price of vehicles is still sky high in comparison to pre-pandemic pricing. Will we ever get back to those retail numbers that we saw in the past? I kind of sort of doubt it. If interest rates remain high, then the affordability of all these vehicles continues to be a stretch for a lot of people out there. So is there a collapse in the used car market? I don't know that there's a collapse so much as there's a reimagining of what was once thought to be affordable, and now today what is thought to be affordable. Even though what was once thought to be affordable is really what people today would like it to be, but it's not, and it never will be again.
Chris, where do you see this market going? What's your crystal ball say for, I don't know, the remainder of 2025? Car prices going to go up, down, stay the same? What do you think?
I think on the new car side is production's pretty firm. Like Toyota has a pretty grasp of what they want to do and how many cars they want to make. And they figured out, you just don't have to make cars to make money. You can control your production and make money. And that's what they're doing. So it's offsetting having a lot of cars on the ground. Most Toyota stores don't have a huge amount of new cars sitting on the ground, and they're not going to because Toyota is somewhat not allowing it. And that firms up the used car Toyota market pretty good. So I think used cars are going to be controlled by the manufacturers, and they control price and incentives. And I think they have their they're watching the pulse, and they're tracking it every day. So it's staying pretty good. So if something starts to slow down, they're going to throw incentives at it. And with the used cars, I think it's just going to stay. I don't think it's going to get crazy. But I think, Hondas and stuff like that, even Nissans, as inventory gets a little tighter, I see prices maybe going up a little, but I don't see it. So this year, I think it's going to stay pretty, I think we're okay.
I think if I hear you correctly, Chris, you're saying things are pretty much at the lowest point they're going to be, and we're going to pretty much remain steady where we're at.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, I buy cars every day. I'm still buying. I'm still selling. So but I'm very, I work a lot harder to buy less cars because I know what my price point is for my market, and I can't go over that price point, or the car will lose thousands. And believe me, it happens all the time. Not every used car makes money. It just doesn't, it gets old or needs a little too much recon. You're going to lose money on the front end, but that's okay, because you need to keep the process going.
Exactly.
A lot of people don't understand is, you can't just hold on to cars because they're, they lose money on the front end. It's a depreciating asset, and it has to go. And just move on and go buy another one.
For sure. Chris, I want to dig in with you for a minute here, actually, on those auction fees. But before we do, I just want to reframe again for those that are joining a little later in the show today. We're joined by Chris, one of my dad's friends, who's been in the industry for over 30 years, working on the wholesale and retail used car side of things for franchise dealerships. And the reason I went with for today's show, did the used car market just collapse, is because we got some really alarming data from IC Cars showing that the under $20,000 used car market is pretty much going the way of the dinosaurs. Back in 2019, 49.3% of used cars for sale in the United States of America were under $20,000. In 2025, it's 11.5% of used cars for sale are under $20,000. That's a 76.6% decline. Go for it, Dad.
Well, what I was going to say is that's 3-year-old used cars.
Yep, 3-year-old used cars. Yep.
So in this particular case, that would be like 2021s, 2022s, 2023s, 2024s.
Great call out. The reason I bring it up as a potential collapse is because, and Chris, I'm curious your take on this before we move to auction fees, is because my dad and I were recently talking to the folks over at RAM, and my dad asked them the question when we were on the phone with them, hey, do you guys continue to see yourselves increasing prices, going more up market? And they said, well, you know what? We don't think we've found our ceiling yet. People keep buying the more expensive vehicles. And I'm waving the flag today on June 25th, 2025. If only 10% of the newer used cars for sale are under $20,000, we know the day's supply of under $15,000 used cars is even tighter than the day's supply of the used car market in general. I'm just waving the flag a little bit, like maybe we are finding the ceiling for price that consumers are willing to spend, and eventually that could lead to a little bit of a slowdown in used car demand. But Chris, obviously, your take on what you're seeing on the front lines and your crystal ball is, no, things will probably stay steady where they are for the foreseeable future.
The only exception to the rule there is sports cars up and down the East Coast. I think you'll see them soften, and very expensive cars, they are selling, like BMWs and Mercedes, they are selling new and used. I just think that market, if you're not right on top of it, and you watch what you buy used, and you got to watch your marketing on new. You got to be very competitive. You could see a stalling there because you are coming into that 4th of July, and then we come into September, model year change, all that good stuff. So, in normal business, you're going to see a price adjustment. It all depends how much inventory everybody has on the ground and how much needs to get moved. And there's not as much as in years past on the ground, you know. So, you know, there's not as many, say, BMWs, but, you know, there's definitely not as many Toyotas and Hondas, I can tell you that. I mean, it's very low on new. So I think you might see the Highline market adjust, but it's going to adjust. It adjusts every year anyways. You know, we're coming up to that adjustment time.
For sure.
Chris, can I ask you a point of reference question for our audience out there? Just give us some ideas to, like, you buy cars and resell them to dealers. Can you give us a point of reference as to approximately how many cars a month you're buying for dealers at the moment?
I buy about 70 cars a month. And the reason that number, it suits the needs of my particular dealers, and I don't want to, it takes a lot of work to do that for one guy and, you know, put them into certain markets, because you really got to watch your pricing when you buy it. You know, it's all in the buy. When you buy a car at the auction, you know, if you paid too much, you're going to lose on the front end. If you paid reasonable money, you're going to make a little on the front end. And, you know, the shop got to, you know, you got to get it through inspection and everything. So, you know, I can't, as one person, I really can't do much more. You know, I'd have to like team up, and I'm not doing that. So I feel comfortable with that number. And it seems to, I seem to get to that number or close to it every month. So, you know.
Seems to work.
Talk to us a little.
It seems to work.
Talk to us a little bit about those auction fees, Chris. I thought that was super interesting. You said earlier in the show, auction fees can sometimes run as high as $700. So help our audience, help our community understand some of the dynamics behind the scenes at these used car dealer auctions.
Well, you know, I mean, Manheim is the biggest auction chain, you know, in the country or wherever in the world, you know. And to buy a $30,000 car, I mean, to buy a $28,000 car costs, the auction fee is $700. So, you know, then you truck it home for $300, so there's $1,000 there. So with the, you know, you buy a $50,000 car, your auction fee could be, I don't know, $1,200, you know. So what I'm saying is, with that number and, you know, the inspection number, I mean, there's so much that goes into it. I mean, and, you know, I can remember when the auction fees used to be $300, $250, you know. And,
hey, I can remember when Tasty Cakes were 5 cents. Okay, the older we get, the cheaper things were when we were kids. Okay.
I mean, you know, some of my clients, you know, ask for recommendations, and what we do to offset that is we'll go and buy directly from a rental company. Like, you know, if you buy direct from Enterprise or Avis, you know, the buy fee is like $200, you know, and they guarantee the car to be like perfect. So, you know, you have very few reconditioning issues because they go through the car, you know, before they give it to you. And those cars are pretty well maintained. You know, they change the oil every 5,000 miles. They're always checking the brakes. You know, they won't sell me a car that's been in a major collision. You know, I only buy clean Carfax cars anyway. So, you know, I know the car hasn't been in an accident. So, you know, go to the auction, pay $700 or pay Avis $200, you know.
Just out of curiosity, what's the what's like the average mileage that's on the retired rental cars that you're able to buy?
You know, great question. And, you know, the answer is kind of odd, but it's the truth. You know, I bought a Honda Civic. I about a Honda CRV yesterday, a 2024, you know, I don't know, 16,000 miles. You know?
Wow.
And it was a sport with it was a sport with a roof, and the thing was loaded. And now ask me why, you know, Avis had that car. I don't know. It could have been an executive rental for 8 months. Rental car companies do a lot of executive rentals. Like, Apple will call them up and say, hey, we got an executive coming in for 5 months. We need a brand new, Toyota Camry. He needs to get a rent. After 5 months, they give it back to Avis, and Avis is like, well, we just charged Apple, whatever, $1,500 a month, and the car's depreciated. Let's just off it at the auction, and they'll post it on their site. And, if it's reasonably priced, I'll buy the car, and it happens a lot. So, sometimes, if they have a lot of Camrys and the market's slowing up, they'll take 125,000 mile Camrys and just sell them.
Wow.
And like within a matter of days, it doesn't take long to get rid of them, believe me. But most of them have about 35,000 miles on them. And some of them, during COVID, they go up to 60, 70,000 miles because they couldn't replace them.
Yes.
But they seem to be able to replace them now. Not like in the good old days, but, they still can get cars like, Toyota's a little tight with the, giving out too many rentals to Avis and them, but like Nissan has a lot of cars. So, there's always somebody that's going to fill the gap,
For sure. Hey, well, Chris, we've taken 30 minutes of your time. And if I'm doing the math in my head, you got to buy 70 cars, 30 minutes. I think we've kept you from buying 0.16 of a car right now. So, me and my dad and I, of course, in our community greatly value your insights from the ground floor. There's another gentleman in our community, Chris, Igor. I'm imagining a day where we get both of you guys. Igor buys a bunch of cars just like you. Both of you guys here on the show with us to get you sharing your insights from the auction floor. But Chris, go enjoy your day. I know it's a hot one for you. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us here today. And we look forward to getting you more on the channel if you're willing to do it in the future. We really appreciate your time, Chris.
Anytime for you and your father.
Thank you, Chris.
See you, Chris.
You're welcome.
What a good guy. Thank you so much to Chris. So really, really appreciate that. And Igor, the offer's open. Get you on the phone, get Chris on the phone, get you guys, between the two of you, you're buying what, 100 plus cars a month? I think that'd be incredible to get your insights.
And the big takeaway for me is that Chris is always looking for ways to try to avoid the auction as much as possible, and tries to develop those relationships with the rental car companies so that he can kind of sort of get first dibs, and buy them at the right price without having to pay the exorbitant auction fees.
I mean, just the fact that you've got, $700 to $1,300 auction fees. It's nuts. Hey, some more data from that IC Cars report. Really good stuff over here from the IC Cars team. Best-selling 3-year-old best-selling 3-year-old used cars under $20,000, 2019 versus 2025. Look at this, Dad. Back in 2019, 42.9% of the Honda CRVs that were for sale that were 3 years old or newer were under $20,000. Today, you want to get your hands on a 3-year-old or newer used Honda CRV, 0.2% market share are made up of that vehicle.
So in other words, if you want to get your hands on one of those, you have to steal it.
I mean, there are no longer under $20,000 3-year-old or newer used Honda CRV. Same story for the Toyota RAV4. Same story for the Chevy Silverado 1500, although that's not as drastic. They're only 1.5% back in the day. Subaru Forester's no longer at a sub $20,000 price point. Subaru Crosstrek's no longer at a sub $20,000 price point. Look at the Honda Civic. Back in 2019, 3-year-old or newer Honda Civics made up 97.6% of them were under $20,000. Today, you want a 3-year-old or newer used Honda Civic, 5.7% of the available inventory is $20,000 or under. So to Chip's, excuse me, I keep calling him Chip because we used to not be able to use his name. To Chris's point, if the new car pricing's firm on these vehicles, the used car pricing's firm on them. And that's why I'm saying, could the used car market collapse? I do think eventually you run out of buyers at these price points. I've been saying that for years, however, and we continue to see banks extending loan terms and giving approvals to people. That credit will be what facilitates this. Credit and debt will be what facilitates this. But it is alarming to me, this latest data that we have here, especially for some of those really nameplate vehicles that people want.
What we would think would stand to reason doesn't anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know how you take 3-year-old cars that at one point in time represented 40, almost 50% of all used car offerings, and that number is down to 11.5%. It just seems to me that it is becoming ever more difficult for those who are in the worst position financially to be able to figure out ways to afford reasonable quality used cars. To think that if you want to be under $20,000 today, you have to be looking at 4-year and older cars. And I believe the average mileage on those type of cars is well in excess of 70,000 miles. So that in order to get into that affordability range for people who are in the worst financial position, they have to take on an older, higher mileage, more than likely vehicle that's going to require a major repair in the not too distant future. And that doesn't bode well or even indicate that it's sustainable. Now, I've said that for 5 damn years, and obviously for 5 damn years I've been wrong, because apparently it is sustainable, but it just seems to me that there's fewer and fewer people actually in the market.
Exactly. And I do think the trends generally show that new car sales have plateaued for the past 50 years. Used car sales have been relatively strong, but you've got to wonder and imagine that as prices have reached this new normal, how many people does that kick out of the market? I've got a few more data points to share with you. However, before I do, I want to make everyone aware, we haven't promoted this in a long time. CarEdge has free car buying cheat sheets. So if you're in the market to buy a new or used vehicle, you should absolutely download our free cheat sheets. They walk you through the to-dos, not to-dos, red flags, things like that. All here, just Google search or your favorite AI tool, car buying cheat sheet from CarEdge. It'll take you right to this page. Get your hands on the free car buying cheat sheets back at CarEdge.com. The other data point I wanted to share, Dad, was this. Look at some of the actual pricing trends from 2019 to 2025. The Nissan Sentra, as a 3-year-old used car in 2019, sold on average for $12,500. Today, that same 3-year-old Nissan Sentra is selling for $18,224, a 45.7% price increase in that Nissan Sentra's transaction price. That is absurd. And it's especially absurd because we're talking about the part of the market that is the most affordable. That is where we are seeing the biggest squeeze upward in price, are those most affordable vehicles. Honda Civic, there used to be a $16,472 price point for a 3-year-old Honda Civic. Now it's a $23,813 price point, 44.6%. And one more, the Toyota Camry, a 3-year-old Toyota Camry used to cost you $16,556 back in 2019. Now a 3-year-old Toyota Camry is going to cost you $23,755, a 43.5% price increase for that same exact vehicle.
Which is why we see in the comments all the time, prices have to come down another 20, 30, 40% before a lot of people will be willing to get back into the market. And even though sales are somewhat stagnant, sales are good enough and dealerships are making enough money that I don't see that ever happening. I don't see prices ever returning to 2019 pricing or 2020 pricing. We crossed that Rubicon a long time ago. It's proven that there are enough folks out there, even though it's a smaller percentage of the total population, there's still enough of them out there that can afford these cars, new and used, at the higher prices. And so as long as that's the case, there's no downward pressure
Yeah.
to lower those prices.
And to be clear, Igor's calling it out here. MSRPs also went up on the new cars during that time. Absolutely. They absolutely did. We've been tracking that car price inflation. Google that or put that in your favorite AI tool. We've been doing all sorts of work on car price inflation. From this community member, PS Chillaroo, our trade-in value is going up by the same percentages. Yes, that is the one bright spot here, is that the vehicle you own is worth more today, most likely, than it was back in 2019, or at least it didn't depreciate as much as you would have anticipated. And obviously, back at CarEdge.com, super proud of what we've built there to track your vehicle value. Go to CarEdge.com, click on What's My Car Worth, enter your vehicle information, and it gets added to the CarEdge garage. Once it's in the CarEdge garage, you'll be able to see the projected future value of your vehicle, as well as major repair probabilities and estimated annual repair and maintenance costs. More information down below as well. And you can even get the window sticker for your vehicle. Nice and handy tool for you back at CarEdge.com. Again, click on What's My Car Worth to add your vehicle to the CarEdge garage. About 1,000 new cars get added to the CarEdge garage every day, man. It's absolutely wild and really, really humbling that people are doing that. Now, Dad,
yes,
want to go to our favorite segment of the show, but honestly, today it's not our favorite. Can you just give me the ad lib, pretty please?
Really? You have got to be kidding me.
This was posted over on Ask Car Sales on Reddit. Got fooled at a Toyota dealership just 2 hours ago. I recently bought a brand new Toyota RAV4 XSE Hybrid. The MSRP is $37,960. My out-the-door price is above $52,000. They never showed me the sticker price during negotiation, and after coming home, I saw it. They kept saying they added additional features on the car, but never did a transparent deal. I asked for the window sticker, and they said someone will give it to you. I was so exhausted and excited and anxious, I forgot to ask for it again. They added $3,500 for total protection package, window tint, N2, pinstripe, etc., and $5,000 for additional dealer markup and 2 delivery fees. $1,400 from the manufacturer and $800 pre-delivery service fee. I am so disheartened. I could have gotten a Lexus for that price. What can I do about it?
Educate yourself in the future.
Yeah,
that's
do you want to? You can take this one. Here you go.
Yeah, I want to say I feel bad for this person because obviously that's the emotion it's trying to draw out of us, but I don't, and here's why I don't. There's this thing called the internet and YouTube and social media and all these things, and on the internet, there is so much information that is available so that if anyone were to walk into a dealership and ask questions and not get answers and keep moving forward in the transaction, that's on them. They need to say no. They need to slow down the process. They need to have done their research before they go to the dealership. We know for a fact dealerships will hide as much of the information as they possibly can, or as much as the information as you will allow them to. Okay? They can't hide it from you if you don't allow that to happen. So how do you prevent that from happening? You do like they do in the NBA or the NFL. You call a timeout. I need a timeout here. I need you to explain to me how we got from here to here. What is this fee? What is that fee? And you don't continue to move forward until you are satisfied with the answer. And if you don't feel as if you'll ever be prepared to be able to do that, then hire someone to do it for you. There are no excuses today other than I was just too lazy. And I don't want there to be I was just too lazy people out there. Utilize the internet. Utilize the services that are out there. Educate yourself and stop with the woe is me. What can I do about it now? You should have worried about it before you walked into the dealership. This falls entirely on you because you weren't willing to slow the process down. And shame on the dealership for practicing selling cars in this manner. They know what they're doing. You need to know what you're doing as a customer. So as much as I would like to feel bad for this person, and emotionally I want to, I just find it hard. At a certain point, We as individuals need to be accountable for the decisions that we make. I'll leave it there.
We're going to clip that and post that over on the main CarEdge channel. That was fantastic. I will also mention here, Jerry's got it. Cancel all the F&I products they added. I don't know if y'all know this. You can go to cancelmyextendedwarranty.com, and that redirects to a blog post that I think Kimberly Klein, who used to work with us here at CarEdge, has her own YouTube channel. Check it out. Kimberly wrote years ago about how to cancel your extended warranty and all the F&I products. So you can also do that. But Dad, that really hit home. Thank you so much for sharing that. And when it comes to services, feels like relatively new in the world. There are services. I'm pulling up our Google reviews here. Dad, Sandra just shared a great review with our team, how awesome of an experience she had. And look at that. She got her hands on a new Toyota. So, like those services do exist if you don't want to put the work in, which, to be clear, I see our team do it day in and day out. I can understand why you wouldn't want to put the work in. Yeah, we've got many of our concierges here. Joe's here. Josh is here. Jerry's here. Okay, let us do it. We're here to do it for you if you don't want to do it.
And it's not even a question if you don't want to do it. It's if you don't want to take the time to be able to be good at it. If you find it's just not in your best interest to commit that time to do that, then hire us or hire somebody. But geez, don't walk into it blind. There's just no excuse for that today. You have to walk into it with your eyes wide open, not wide shut. Okay. I would just, whoever that customer is, I would like to grab him by the throat collar and slap him across the face and say, and then have him look at me and go, "Thanks, I needed that." It's a wake-up call, in my opinion.
The comments of grabbing a customer by the throat and slapping them across the face and giving them a wake-up call are expressed in my father's opinion and do not represent CarEdge or our corporation. So there you go.
Or any of the thugs out there that might want to do something like that.
All right, y'all, we're going to call that a show. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and joining us today. Again, if we can help you out with anything in particular, I'm reminded we have so many tools and resources. Those car buying cheat sheets are fantastic. Just Google search car buying cheat sheets, and they'll pop right up. Or go to caredge.com/research. We've got the under car calculators. We got the lease calculator. Go for it, Dad.
Let me ask you a question. If you just typed in CarEdge help, what would all this stuff just pop up, do you think? I mean, or car buying help. I mean, isn't this stuff semi?
Hey, look at that. Look at that. The AI response. You see that, Dad?
Well, look,
free resources like guides and
services.
cheat sheets. Yeah.
I mean, there's just no excuse today, unless you're my brother and you don't own a smartphone, a computer, or a library card to go use a computer at the library. Okay, but other than that, there is no excuse.
Thank you, Pops. I agree. All right, y'all. We'll be back tomorrow with more CarEdge Live. Again, thanks to Chris for tuning in for spending time with us. Thank you for tuning in with us today. And thank you to our sponsor, Delete Me. Again, if Delete Me can help you out protecting yourself with your online data, click the link in the description down below. Dad, let's do it all again tomorrow. Enjoy the afternoon.
You do the same, and hopefully the Suns draft somebody worthwhile tonight.